In One Piece, the story has entered the climax of the Wano Country arc when it was revealed that the devil fruit that Luffy ate is actually a mythical Zoan fruit, Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika. After awakening its powers, Luffy was able to activate his Gear 5 for the first time. But is this really the final gear? This time, we'd like to thoroughly discuss a possible final gear, Gear 6. Please note that this video contains many spoilers up until chapter 1047 of One Piece. Hello everyone, we are One Piece fanatics! Finally, in chapter 1044, the devil fruit that Luffy ate was revealed to be actually a mythical Zoan fruit called the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. And by awakening the fruit's powers, Luffy was able to create Gear 5. A gear is a technique that Luffy developed using his rubber body to increase his fighting ability by one level, just like the gears in a car. Luffy in Gear 5 was strong enough to defeat Kaido in a 1 versus 1 fight, formerly one of the 4 emperors and known as the world's strongest creature. Luffy has already become very strong, but is Gear 5 really his limit? In this video, we'd like to thoroughly discuss the possibility of a next level, Gear 6. Let's get started. 1. The characteristics of Gear 5. First, let's take a look at the characteristics of Gear 5's abilities before looking at the possibility of a next level gear. First of all, the condition for activating Gear 5 is for Luffy to change his heartbeat to a specific rhythm called the Drums of Liberation. Come on, heart, hit that beat! In chapter 1045, Luffy changed his heartbeat to use Gear 5 again. On a side note, Shueisha, hearing Luffy's heartbeat, declares that it's the rhythm of the Drums of Liberation and that Joy Boy has returned. And what is most remarkable is the ability of Gear 5. Awakening brings his rubbery body greater physical strength and freedom. As the 5 elders stated in chapter 1044, Luffy acquired 2 major abilities. Firstly, Luffy's arm strength has increased dramatically beyond comparison with his previous one. He can throw Kaido in his huge beast form with a giant swing and swing Kaido's serpentine body like a jump rope. In addition to this arm strength, when he reaches Gear 5, he constantly has Busushuku and Haushuku. The second is that his fighting ability is only limited by his imagination. For example, he can grow his body to a gigantic size, or he can run through the air by spinning his legs at super high speed. And there's even more to this. When he was swallowed by Kaido in chapter 1045, he sticks his hands out of Kaido's eyeballs to escape from his mouth, completely defying any laws of physics and biology. And the greatest potential of Gear 5 is that he can use the abilities of the 3 types of devil fruits. Let's first look at the awakening of Zoan fruits. Those beasts are awakened Zoan users. Extreme physical toughness and recovery power are their strong points. Just as Crocodile mentioned in chapter 544, Luffy in Gear 5 has extraordinary toughness and resilience. Even though Kaido bit Luffy and then hit him on the head with a spiked metal rod in chapter 1045, Luffy cried out in pain but didn't seem to receive any damage. Not only that, in chapter 1043, Luffy was so seriously injured that his heart stopped beating. But in chapter 1044, he fully recovered and fought with Kaido on equal footing. This super recovery is an effect of the Zoan awakening. Devil fruit users rarely awaken their ability, but when they do, they can even affect people around them. In chapter 785, Doflamingo shows the awakening form of Paramecia devil fruits. We can see that Luffy's Gear 5 can use similar abilities. For example, in chapters 1044 to 1046, the ground turns to rubber in many battle scenes. And it's not only objects that he can turn into rubber, but also other people, like when he turned Kaido's body into rubber. The ability gives, of course, the great elasticity of rubber, but it can also repel Kaido's bolo breath, transcending the laws of physics. It's the kind of power that can easily disable his enemy's defense. And by the end of chapter 1046, we can also see that Luffy may also be able to use Logia-type abilities. when he grabs lightning and uses it as a weapon. There are three possible explanations for this. The first one is that Luffy is grabbing thunderbolts from thunderclouds brought by Kaido. In this case, the lightning is considered a weapon and can't damage his rubber body. But as he can grab an intangible natural element, then it means that he also has the ability to interfere with nature. Another possibility is that Luffy is using his imagination to create the lightning. In this case, it would mean that Luffy can manipulate any natural element that he wants. In other words, he can manipulate not only lightning but also fire, wind, and ice. The third possible explanation is that he's using his ability to turn objects into rubber, like we explained earlier. If Luffy in Gear 5 has the ability to change anything into rubber, then it should not be impossible to turn even lightning into rubber. For the moment, those three explanations are also plausible, but since Luffy has shown unexplainable lightning abilities, it is quite possible that Luffy can use Logia-type abilities. Now, let's summarize the characteristics of Gear 5. Busoshuku and Hoshuku are activated. Luffy's bodily form is only limited by his imagination. He has increased physical strength and resistance. He can turn to rubber both the environment around him and living things. He might be able to manipulate natural elements. In addition to this, another apparent feature of Gear 5 is that his entire body, including his clothes, becomes white. It's very different to Gear 4, where parts of his body turn black. Adding all of these together, you can see that Gear 5 looks invincible. Many readers might think that there can be no better ability than Gear 5, but we believe there's a high probability that there will be a form that surpasses Gear 5. Number 2. The evidence of Gear 6's existence. There are three major reasons for this. 1. There's a very high chance that Gear 5 has already been reached by Joy Boy. 2. There are still strong enemies left. 3. Luffy is evolving to fight against stronger enemies. Let's look at those three reasons in more detail. The other person who achieved awakening of the mythical Zoan fruit Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, is Joy Boy, who lived in the Void Century. For the first time in 800 years, he is here. Joy Boy has returned. We understand that Zunisha says Joy Boy was awakened by the beat of the drums of liberation from Luffy's heartbeat. In other words, there's a high possibility that Joy Boy achieved Gear 5 like Luffy. But Joy Boy was somehow defeated by the ancient alliance of the 20 kingdoms, which later on became the world government. Although the situation has changed over 800 years, the world government that destroyed the Great Kingdom where Joy Boy once existed is still operating. This means that there must be an enemy that Luffy can't currently win against, right? In other words, in order for Luffy to accomplish what Joy Boy couldn't in the past, he needs to become more than what Joy Boy used to be. We of One Piece fanatics are guessing that this must lead to Luffy creating another gear, to Gear 6. Luffy successfully defeated Kaido in the Wano country, but there are still obstacles before he can become the Pirate King. There's still Shanks and Blackbeard in the Four Emperors, and in the Marines, there are powerful admirals such as Akainu. Finally, there's Im and the 5 elders from the world government. As Luffy has become the warrior of liberation and is portrayed as the complete opposite of Blackbeard, it is expected that he will clash with the world government in the future. Furthermore, Blackbeard has the abilities of 2 devil fruits, the Logia-type Yami Yami no Mi, which can nullify the abilities of other devil fruits, and the Paramecia-type Gura Gura no Mi. So even for Gear 5 Luffy, he will not be an easy opponent to defeat. Since entering the Grand Line, Luffy has continued to evolve by overcoming obstacles every time he fights strong opponents. For example, in Gear 4, when fighting Doflamingo, he created Bound Man. With Cracker, Tank Man, and with Katakuri, Snake Man. And he finally awakened Gear 5 in his battle against Kaido. Kaido is said to be the world's strongest creature, but there are still many unknown enemies such as Shanks that may surpass Kaido, and there's also the possibility that Luffy will have to overcome further challenges. If so, it's very likely that Luffy will have to evolve beyond Gear 5. These were the reasons why we think that Luffy might have power exceeding Gear 5. Number 3. So what exactly will Gear 6 be like? We think it could evolve in the following two directions. The first one is a vertical direction where each of his Gear 5 abilities are upgraded. The second one is a horizontal direction where his abilities will evolve as a countermeasure to his enemies' abilities. Let's start with the vertical direction. The upgrade of his Gear 5 abilities. Let's first review his Gear 5 abilities one by one. Firstly, the potential to spread his strength to his entire body. In Gear 5, his strength and power are limited to his arms. It's possible that an upgrade of this ability will remove this limit and give great strength and power to his entire body. Then, Luffy would improve not only arm strength, but also his speed and toughness. Next, let's look at Bososhuku and Hashuku that he can constantly use. We're expecting that Luffy will be able to use Kenbun-shuku in addition to Bososhuku and Hashuku as an upgrade. At the moment, Luffy can predict attacks against him, but we expect that he'll be able to use his ability in a more diverse and advanced way, just like a seer. For example, the god of the sun in Greek mythology is also a god of prophecy. He even has the ability to force his enemies to act according to his prophecy. He may even alter the future, as Luffy takes the form of Nika, the sun god. If he can realize this, Luffy may become invincible. Next, let's look at the upgrade of his power limitation. We're scratching our heads over this one and are unable to think of a possible upgrade. This is because his limitation in Gear 5 is his imagination. Gear 5 already gives Luffy the freedom to do anything he wants, so what could top that? Next is the upgrade of his extraordinary toughness and super healing. It's also hard to think of the upgrade for this, because the upgrade of this ability would bring Luffy close to immortality. Finally, the upgrade of his ability to turn into rubber any living or non-living things. We can think of two possible ways of upgrading this ability: adjusting the elasticity of the rubber and making objects bounce from it in any direction. First of all, adjusting the elasticity of rubber means manipulating the repulsion coefficient. Simply put, it is the ability to adjust the resistance of the rubber to control when and what speed it can push back things. This will make the rubber's repelling properties stronger and faster if it's tightened, or weaker and slower if relaxed. Then there's the ability to repel the object in any direction, which would transcend the laws of physics. If you're a secondary school student or older, you may have heard of the law of reflection. Let's have a short science lesson. The law of reflection, to put simply, tells us that if we throw a ball straight at a wall, it bounces straight back at us. The trajectory of the ball will be in the exact opposite direction from what we've thrown. But if Luffy can free himself from this law and change the property of rubber, he could choose the trajectory of the bouncing ball. In a sense, it would be similar to the vector manipulation ability. And the final upgrade, the upgrade of his ability to manipulate natural elements freely. The upgrade of this ability would be similar to Logia-type users that are able to transform their bodies into the element that they control. However, both Luffy and Nika already have rubber bodies, so we think it's not possible for this ability to go that far. Let's now look at the second direction where his abilities evolve to countermeasure his enemies' abilities. Let's first look at Luffy's future potential enemies. 1. The other 4 emperors, Shanks and Blackbeard. 2. Akainu and other admirals from the Marines. And 3. Im and the 5 elders of the world government. Among them, the one who has the ability to directly fight Luffy and whose abilities are known to some extent are Admiral Akainu of the Marines and one of the 4 emperors, Blackbeard. Now, let's see which abilities they would use to attack Luffy. Akainu ate the Magu-Magu no Mi, a Logia-type devil fruit that gives him the ability to manipulate magma and transform his body into it. The magma that Akainu manipulates is so powerful that in chapter 575, he was able to destroy with Meigo half of Whitebeard's head even though he was really strong and could use Haki. He is truly the person who has the hottest attack power in One Piece. The most important thing to counter Akainu is to stop his magma's scorching heat. There are 2 ways to do that. The first would be an ability to cool his magma, and the second would be an ability that is hotter than his magma. Let's think about the ability to cool magma first. As we explained earlier, if Luffy awakens his ability to manipulate any natural phenomenon, he'll be able to create ice like Aokiji does and freeze Akainu's magma. However, since Aokiji was defeated by Akainu once, it would be necessary to at least surpass Aokiji's ice ability, which may not be very realistic. And now, for the ability to become hotter than magma, the sun god Nika inhabits the devil fruit that Luffy ate. Nika is said to be a warrior of liberation and uses the sun as a symbol of hope. However, if Nika is a sun god who's like the one in Greek mythology, he may also be able to handle the sun's flames that are hotter than magma. We believe this theory is more likely than the first one. And here's another short science lesson. The sun's flames are actually the product of nuclear fusion, and even the coolest part of the sun is over 6,000 degrees Celsius, which is 6 times the temperature of magma. See how those science classes are coming into use now? Next is Blackbeard, who uses the abilities of 2 devil fruits, the Logia-type Yami Yami no Mi and the Paramecia-type Gura Gura no Mi. Blackbeard will probably be the most powerful enemy that Luffy has to fight in the future. In order to fight against such a powerful enemy, we think that Luffy needs to acquire in Gear 6 a special new skill, that is, the ability to use his rubber to bounce off other fruit users' abilities. Let us explain it step by step. Firstly, Blackbeard's most terrifying attack is the combination of his Kurozu technique and the ability of the Yami Yami no Mi devil fruit. His Kurozu technique can forcibly pull an opponent closer towards him, and with the Yami Yami no Mi's ability, Blackbeard can disable his opponent's ability when he touches them. So he pulls them closer to him and then disables their ability. When he stole the Gura Gura no Mi from Whitebeard, Blackbeard was able to use it against him. The Gura Gura no Mi is renowned to have the strongest attack power in the story. At this point, the only 2 possible ways to defeat this combo are to disable Blackbeard with a single blow, and to resist the attacks of the Gura Gura no Mi without using devil fruit abilities. However, no matter how much haki is used, Blackbeard also uses it, so it seems almost impossible for any character in the story to defeat Blackbeard. Naturally, even Luffy will be forced to cancel his Gear 5 once he's grabbed by Blackbeard, and he will have a hard time. Therefore, in order for Luffy to beat this Blackbeard combo, he might have to further strengthen his repelling rubber ability. Currently, the awakened Luffy can turn to rubber both living and non-living things. He can also repel attacks with his rubber. However, what if, in the upgraded version of this ability, he could repel even abstract concepts with his rubber? In other words, even the abilities of Blackbeard's insubstantial Yami Yami no Mi and Gura Gura no Mi could be bounced back by Luffy's rubber. If this happens, Luffy's enemies will never be able to hit him with their own devil fruit abilities. He will be reborn as one of the strongest characters among the Jump characters like Gojo Satoru and his Limitless, and Giorno Giovanna and his Gold Experience Requiem. Number 4. The ability to share his power with his allies. Up to this point, we've been thinking of Gear 5 only in the way where Luffy becomes more powerful. But there's one last possibility, and that's Luffy being able to share his power with his friends. Luffy has many friends, and this is his other great strength besides his devil fruit abilities. Joy Boy, who probably awakened the devil fruit ability, was defeated 800 years ago by the 20 kingdoms that would later on become the world government. We still don't know how he was defeated, but perhaps didn't matter how strong Joy Boy was as he faced 20 allied kingdoms. In other words, Joy Boy was at a great advantage in terms of number. Even a powerful man cannot stand alone against 20 kingdoms. So in order to surpass Joy Boy, not only Luffy, but also his friends must become stronger. Of course, we can assume Joy Boy had many strong friends as well. But what we're trying to say here is that Luffy's friends need to become as strong as Luffy and stand with him in battle. Luffy's power to use the freedom of his imagination in a fight might influence his friends through further awakening, and they, in turn, might have the power with this ability too. For example, Usopp could transform his Kayakuboshi to a horde of flaming giants with his imagination, or Robin could copy herself into a large number of different bodies, like Naruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu. Luffy has become stronger by overcoming hardship on his own, so it may seem a little strange to imagine that he will share his power with his friends if he awakens to Gear 6. However, we believe that one of the themes of One Piece is liberation from domination, suggesting a free way of life. And in the world of One Piece, it's not only Luffy who shows this way of life, because in this story, everyone can live freely. If you try to imagine the crew of the Straw Hat Pirates fighting in any way they would want to, we could understand how this awakening ability is connected to the theme of One Piece. And that's how we fanatics have analyzed the story. But what do you think? Do you also think that Luffy's not at the end of his evolution? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you again for watching. See you in the next video.